Listen carefully. If you keep ending up with the wrong man, and your mother did too, and her mother before her, this is not bad luck. There is a name for what is following the women in your family. And in the next 35 minutes, I'm going to show you what your grandmother carried, why it landed on you, and how it ends tonight, at your name. My grandmother's name was Esperanza Beatrice de la Cruz. She lived her whole life in McAllen, Texas. By day she was a seamstress. She sewed dresses for the church and first communion gowns for the little girls of the neighborhood. But after the sun went down, women came to her door for a different kind of work. They came for what runs in the blood. I was 8 years old the first time I saw it happen. I was sitting on the wooden floor of her sewing room, the ceiling fan turning slow above us, the way it always did in the Texas summer. The door opened and a woman walked in. She was maybe 30 years old. She did not say hello. She sat down on the chair across from my grandmother, and she started to cry before she said a single word. My grandmother did not ask her what was wrong. She did not try to comfort her. She just sat there, very still, and after a long moment she said, in Spanish, the language of our family, "Tell me about your mother. Tell me about your grandmother." The woman cried harder. Her mother, she said, had married a man who drank. He disappeared for weeks at a time and came back to break things in the house. Her grandmother had married a man who left for the war, and the war here was the war of the bottle. He never came home in his right mind, and she herself. She had just left a man 2 days ago who broke her wrist and her spirit in the same evening. My grandmother nodded, very slow. She took that woman's hand in her hands, and her voice got very quiet, and she said, "My daughter, this is not yours. This is older than you. This is what your mother carried, and your grandmother carried, and the one before her carried. And tonight, before the sun comes up over McAllen, this is going to end at your name." I was a small boy. I did not understand all the words, but I understood the look on that woman's face when my grandmother said those words. It was the look of a window opening in a house that had been sealed shut for 100 years. That night, my grandmother lit 3 white candles on the kitchen table. She read 3 verses from her old Bible. She said the woman's name out loud, and the names of her mother and her grandmother. And after that night, that woman never married a man who hurt her again. She married a man named Tomas in a small church, with white flowers, and they raised 3 daughters in a quiet house. None of those daughters carried the chain. That was the first time I saw what I am going to teach you tonight. Before I go any further, listen. I left a door open for you below this video. If what I'm about to say in the next half hour lands somewhere true in your spirit, walk through that door when you are ready. There is a free reading of the 3 gates of your own life, your past, your present, and what is coming, waiting at the link in the description and pinned in the comments. It costs nothing. It just stays open for 48 hours after each video. Walk through if you feel called. Now, let me tell you what was happening in that sewing room in McAllen. And let me tell you why it is happening in your life right now, even if you have never met me before tonight. The Bible has a name for it. The King James calls it the iniquity of the fathers. In the book of Exodus, chapter 20, verse 5, God speaks plainly. He says, "For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the 3rd and 4th generation of them that hate me." Read those words again in your spirit. 3rd and 4th generation. That is not a curse God places on people. That is God describing how the chain walks. How something broken in a family bloodline reaches through time, through 3 generations, through 4, until somebody sees it and ends it. In Lamentations chapter 5 verse 7, the prophet Jeremiah weeps these words, "Our fathers have sinned and are not, and we have borne their iniquities. We have borne, we have carried, we have walked under the weight of what those before us put down and never picked back up." And then, in the book of Galatians, chapter 3, verse 13, the Apostle Paul gives us the only word that breaks it. He says, "Christ hath redeemed us from the curse of the law, being made a curse for us." Redeemed, bought back, released from the chain. There are pastors in this country, men of God I respect deeply, who have been teaching this from the pulpit for 50 years. Derek Prince taught it before he passed. Larry Huch teaches it from his pulpit in Texas to this day. Marilyn Hickey has named it for decades. John Eckhardt writes about it in his books. They call it the generational curse. They call it the chain. They call it the iniquity that follows the bloodline. And every single one of them will tell you the same thing my grandmother told that woman in McAllen on that hot summer night. The chain is real. The chain has a name. and the chain ends the moment somebody in the bloodline sees it and stands up and says, "Not in my name, not in my house, not in my daughters, not anymore." That is what we are doing tonight, you and I. In the next 30 minutes, I am going to show you exactly what is following the women in your family. The 3 signs you will recognize the moment I name them. The mechanism behind it, the biblical key that breaks it, and the ritual my grandmother used in that sewing room, the same one I'm going to walk you through before the sun rises where you are sitting right now. This is not bad luck. This is not poor taste in men. This is not your trauma. Trauma is the wound. The chain is the inheritance that put the wound there to begin with. Sit with this for a moment. Take a breath. What you carry was never yours. Say it out loud, where you are sitting right now. Say it once, and listen to how your own body responds to those words. What you carry was never yours. The shame you have felt about every man you ever picked. The questioning of your own judgment every time another one disappointed you. The voice in the back of your mind that says, "What is wrong with me?" The shame that whispers, "My mother had this too, maybe I am just like her." That voice is not telling you the truth. That voice is the chain speaking. What you carry was never yours. It belonged to your grandmother. It belonged to her mother before her. It walked through the door of your blood the day you were born. And it has been wearing your face ever since, pretending to be you. But it is not you. It never was. Now I am going to tell you the 3 signs. The way my grandmother taught me to recognize the chain on the love line of any woman who walked into her sewing room. If you carry it, you will recognize all 3. If you carry it strongly, you will feel something in your chest as I name each one. The first sign: you keep falling for the same archetype of man, even when you know better. You leave one relationship promising yourself, never again. Never another one like him. Never another man who cannot hold a job. Never another man who drinks. Never another man who disappears on you. Never another man who turns cold when you ask for what you need. And then, 6 months later, 8 months later, 2 years later, you look up across a table or a bar or a church coffee hour, and there he is again. A different face, a different name, a different city even. But the same man, the same eyes, the same way he holds himself, the same story unfolding in slow motion again. This is not your taste. Taste is what you choose with your mind. The chain chooses with the blood. The chain finds the same archetype because the chain recognizes him. Your mother knew him. Your grandmother knew him. Your great-grandmother knew him. He is the man who has been visiting the women in your bloodline for 100 years, just wearing a different body each time. The second sign: when something genuinely good comes, you sabotage it or you run from it. A kind man crosses your path. He listens to you. He shows up when he says he will. He does not need you to perform. He does not need you to fix him. He does not need you to be small. And something inside you, something you cannot quite name, gets restless. It gets bored. It says, "This is not real." It says, "He must be hiding something." It says, "This is too easy." It says, "You do not deserve this." And so you pick a fight. Or you go cold on him. Or you start scanning for his flaws, and you find them, because every human has them. And one day you walk away from the kind man, and within months, sometimes within weeks, you find yourself drawn to the man with the same eyes as your father, with the same drink in his hand as your grandfather, with the same coldness as the man your mother cried about. That is not a flaw in your character. That is the chain protecting itself. The chain does not want peace in your love line. Peace ends the chain. The chain wants what it has always wanted. The same pattern in a new body, in a new generation. The third sign, the hardest one to see. Watch for it carefully. Bad things happen to your love life around the same age your mother's marriage broke, or around the same age your grandmother lost her husband, or around the season of the year when the women in your family have always cried. I have sat with women in their 30s who told me, "Every August something falls apart in my relationship. I do not understand it." And when I asked them about August in their family, they would go quiet, and then they would remember. August was when her father left, or August was when her mother got the divorce papers, or August was the month her grandmother buried her husband. The chain remembers dates. The chain remembers ages. The chain knows when your mother was 34 and her marriage cracked. And the chain will wait for you to turn 34, and it will come for what is yours. If even one of these 3 signs hit you as I named them, you carry the chain. If 2 of them hit you, the chain is heavy on your line. If all 3 hit you, my daughter, you are exactly where my grandmother used to say the deepest work begins. And the deepest work is also the work that ends it forever, at your name. Stop. Breathe. I know what just happened in your chest. I have watched it happen on 100 faces across a kitchen table in McAllen. The recognition. The relief that there is finally a name for it. And underneath the relief, something heavier. The question, can it actually end? Can it end with me? Or is this just one more thing I am going to carry until I am too tired to carry anything at all? Hear me now. Hear me in the place where the chain has been whispering to you for 40 years. The chain ends here. Not in your daughter. Not in your granddaughter. Here. In you. In this body. In this generation. In this room where you are sitting right now, listening to a stranger's voice through a screen. The chain ends here. That sentence is not a hope. That sentence is a covenant. It is a line drawn in the bloodline, and the moment you say it out loud and mean it, something on the other side of the veil listens and answers. If you have not walked through the door I left for you below this video, do it now while what I just said is still in your spirit. The free 3-gate reading is waiting. The link is in the description and pinned at the top of the comments. Walk through. It costs nothing. The door stays open. Now I am going to show you the mechanism. Why it lands on you specifically. Why your sister might not feel it the same way you do. Why one daughter in a bloodline carries the weight of all the women before her, while her cousin walks away clean. Every woman, my grandmother used to say, is born with 3 sealed chambers in her spirit. She used to draw them for me with her finger on the kitchen table, 3 circles in a row. The first chamber is the chamber of abundance. The chamber where money learns to stay. Where work bears fruit. Where the harvest is gathered. The second chamber is the chamber of love, the chamber where the right man finds his way to your door, where intimacy heals instead of wounds, where the marriage stands. The third chamber is the chamber of health, the chamber where the body holds together, where sickness does not pass through the generations, where the long life is given. When a woman is born, all 3 chambers are supposed to be sealed, closed, protected, the way God designed them in Eden before the world was broken. But somewhere in the bloodline, generations back, one of those chambers cracked open. A grandmother lost a husband too young. A great-grandmother was betrayed in a way she never spoke of out loud. A woman further back gave up on love and cursed her own daughters with the giving up. And the moment the chamber cracked, the seal broke. And from that day on, every daughter born into that line is born with the chamber already open. When the chamber of love is open, whatever drifts past in the spiritual realm settles inside. Bad men feel the opening and walk in. Toxic patterns feel the opening and unfold. Despair feels the opening and takes a room. The voice that says you will always be alone feels the opening and starts to whisper. And the woman who carries the open chamber cannot understand why she is the way she is. She prays. She reads her Bible. She goes to therapy. She does the inner work. She makes lists of what she wants and what she will not accept. And still somehow the wrong man finds her again. Because the chamber is still open, and the chain is still walking through it. This is why your sister might not feel what you feel. Maybe she was born after the chain had already chosen who it would walk through. Maybe she carries it on a different chamber. Maybe she is asleep to it, and you are awake. The chain does not have to land on every daughter equally. It only needs one daughter to keep it walking. But here is what my grandmother taught me, and it is the most important thing I'm going to tell you tonight. A chamber that was opened by a generation can be sealed again by a generation. The same way a curse can be inherited, a sealing can be received. And the woman who seals her chamber does not just seal it for herself. She seals it for every daughter born after her in her bloodline, for her own daughters, for her granddaughters, for the great-granddaughter she will never live to meet. The chain ends, and the line begins again, clean, the way God made it before any of this was broken. Let me tell you what my grandmother used to do. It is 60 years ago now. McAllen in the summer. The cicadas screaming in the orange trees outside. My grandmother sitting at the kitchen table at midnight after she had finished sewing for the day. She would pull her old Bible toward her, the one with the leather cracked at the spine, the one her own mother had given her when she was a girl in Chihuahua before the family came north. She would pour herself a small glass of water. She would light one white candle, and she would sit there in the half-dark with the candle flame trembling, and she would speak to the women of our line. She would say their names out loud, one by one. The mother she had buried, the grandmother she had only known as a girl, the great-grandmother she had only heard about in stories. And then, after she had said their names, she would open the Bible to the Psalms, and she would read the same 3 Psalms every single night. Psalm 91, Psalm 121, Psalm 127, Psalm 91 for protection of the house. He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. Psalm 121 for the watching over of the family. The Lord shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in from this time forth, and even for evermore. And Psalm 127 for the building of the bloodline. Except the Lord build the house, they labor in vain that build it. She would close her eyes. She would say a prayer in Spanish that I cannot translate without losing what makes it powerful. And then she would blow out the candle. And she would go to bed. I asked her once, when I was older, why she did it every night. She did not look at me when she answered. She kept folding the dress she was working on, and she said, "My son, when nobody else is awake to remember the women of our line, somebody has to stand at the door of the bloodline and hold it open for them, and somebody has to close it again so the wrong things cannot come through." My grandmother taught me that. She taught me that a woman who knows what runs in her blood can either be the door it walks through, or she can be the one who stands in the door and says, "No further." She taught me that the chain ends in whichever generation finally pays attention. She taught me that the ritual does not have to be elaborate. It has to be true. It has to be spoken out loud. It has to call the names. And it has to be anchored in the Word of God. That is what I am going to walk you through right now. You can do this tonight. You do not need to wait. You do not need to leave your house. You do not need to buy anything. You need 3 white candles, the kind they sell in any grocery store. You need a Bible, any translation, although King James is what my grandmother used, and it is what I use. And you need a small table or a chair you can clear off and sit at alone in the dark, where nobody will interrupt you. When the house is quiet and the children are asleep and the rest of the world has gone to bed without you, sit down at that table. Place the 3 candles in a row in front of you. Light them one at a time. As you light each one, say out loud the name of one woman in your bloodline. The first candle is for the woman closest to you. Your mother if she is still living, your mother who is passed if she is gone, or the woman who raised you in the place of your mother if your bloodline was broken some other way. Say her name out loud. Say it 3 times. And then say these words, in your own voice, to the candle flame, where she can hear you across whatever distance separates you now. I see you. I see what you carried. I see what was put on you that was never yours. And tonight, in this house, with my own breath, I lift it off your shoulders. The second candle is for the woman before her, your grandmother. Light it. Say her name 3 times, and then say the same words. I see you. I see what you carried. I see what was put on you that was never yours. And tonight, in this house, with my own breath, I lift it off your shoulders. The third candle is for the women you do not know. The great-grandmother. The great-great-grandmother. The woman so far back in your bloodline that not even the family stories remember her face. Light it. And speak to her not by name but by relation. I do not know your name, but I know you walked. I know you suffered something a woman should never have to carry. I know you passed it forward because you did not know there was another way. And tonight, in this house, with my own breath, I lift it off your shoulders. Now open the Bible. Open it to Psalm 127. Read the first 2 verses out loud, slowly, with your own voice. Let the candles hear what God said about the house of a woman who calls upon his name. Except the Lord build the house, they labor in vain that build it. Except the Lord keep the city, the watchman waketh but in vain. It is vain for you to rise up early, to sit up late, to eat the bread of sorrows. For so he giveth his beloved sleep. Now read Psalm 91 verse 1 and verse 2, slowly. He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress. My God, in him will I trust. And now, after you have read the Psalms, you say the words my grandmother taught me. The words she said in Spanish in the sewing room in McAllen. The words I am going to give you now in your own language, so you can speak them with the full weight of what they mean. In the name of Jesus Christ, who was made a curse for me so that I would never have to carry one. In the name of the God who builds the house, in the name of the breath that was given to me by my mother, and to her by her mother, and to her by every woman of this bloodline, going back to the first one God made, I declare, in this body, in this house, in this generation, the chain ends here. It does not pass to my daughters. It does not pass to my granddaughters. It does not pass to any woman born of my line from this night forward. What you carried was never mine, and what I will not carry will never belong to the women who come after me. The chain ends here. Sit with the candles for as long as you need. When you are ready, blow them out one at a time. Start with the third one, the oldest one, then the second, then the first. Each time, say the same words. I release you. Go in peace. That is the ritual. It is not magic. It is not a cult. It is what Christian women have been doing in their kitchens for 2,000 years, in every country where the gospel ever reached. You are not the first to do this, but you might be the first in your bloodline. Let me tell you about 3 women who have done what I just walked you through. The first one is named Linda. She lives in Tulsa, Oklahoma. She came to me 18 months ago. She had been married twice, both to men who drank. Both ended in divorces she did not see coming. She was 46. Her mother had been married 3 times. Her grandmother had been left a widow at 32. Linda told me when she sat down across from me on a video call, the first thing she said was, I am tired of being the woman the wrong man can find from 100 miles away. We walked through the ritual together. She lit her 3 candles in a little condo in Tulsa, alone on a Tuesday night in October. She spoke her mother's name and her grandmother's name, and the name of a great-grandmother she had only seen in one old photograph. She read the Psalms. She said the words. 2 months later, she met a man at a church coffee, a widower, a kind man, a man who showed up. They are getting married this fall. Linda wrote to me last week and she said, Celestino, for the first time in my life, I am not waiting for the other shoe to drop. The chamber is sealed. The second woman is named Bianca. She lives in El Paso, not far from where my grandmother was born. Bianca is younger than Linda, maybe 38. She had never been married. She had a pattern of 2-year relationships that always ended the same way, the man pulling away the moment things got serious, and her chasing after, and the worse it got, the more she chased. Bianca had grown up watching her mother do the same thing. Her mother had spent 30 years chasing a man who had 1 foot out the door of every house he ever lived in. Bianca told me, I do not want to be my mother, but I do not know how to be anyone else. She did the ritual on a December night. She told me later that when she said the words, the chain ends here, something physical happened in her chest. She started crying so hard she could not see the candles anymore. She slept for 14 hours that night, and when she woke up, she said, I felt for the first time in my adult life like my body was just my own, like nobody else was living inside of it with me. She is dating a man now who is not going anywhere. She is not chasing. She does not need to. The chamber is sealed. The third woman is named Mary. She lives in Charlotte, North Carolina. Mary is 61 years old. She has been a widow for 9 years. She thought her time for love had passed. She thought the chain had taken everything it was going to take from her. Mary did the ritual not for herself, but for her 2 daughters. Her daughters were both repeating her patterns. One was on her second divorce. The other was in a relationship with a man who had been verbally cruel to her for 3 years, and she could not seem to leave. Mary lit her 3 candles, and she did what my grandmother used to do. She stood at the door of her bloodline and she said, not in my daughters, not in my granddaughters. The chain ends here. 2 weeks after Mary did the ritual, her younger daughter walked out of that relationship without looking back. Mary wrote to me. She said, Celestino, I do not know what shifted, but my daughter called me and said something just lifted off of her overnight. I knew exactly what she meant. 3 women, 3 different ages, 3 different cities. The same chain, the same ritual, the same ending. Now I want to speak to you, the one listening. The one who has stayed with me for 35 minutes when most of the world cannot stay with anything for 30 seconds. You did not find this video by accident. The algorithm is real, but the chain is older than the algorithm. Something in your spirit was hungry tonight, and something in the spirit of this work answered. That is not coincidence. That is the way the door of the bloodline announces that it is ready to be closed. So here is what I am asking you to do. Tonight, before you go to bed, walk through the door I left for you below this video. There is a free reading of the 3 gates of your life. Your past, where the chain came from. Your present, where it is showing itself in the patterns you are living. And your future, what is coming if you let it walk, and what is possible if you stand in the door and close it. The reading is free. It does not cost a thing. The door stays open for 48 hours after each video. Walk through. The link is in the description and pinned at the top of the comments. And if you do the ritual tonight, with the 3 candles and the psalms and the words I gave you, come back here when you have done it. Leave a comment that just says, "The chain ends here," so that the women who come after you in this comment section will know they are not alone, so that they will know somebody in this place has already stood in the door and closed it, so that they will have courage to do the same. The order of light walks together. We do not walk alone. Not anymore. I will see you in the next reading. What you carry was never yours. The chain ends here. My grandmother taught me. And the order of light walks together. Walk through the door.